Go for it.
In the early 18th century, London was rapidly becoming one of the largest cities in Europe. Vibrant discussions about new ways of living were being hosted at coffee houses across the city. And in the back rooms of certain establishments, a community was being born. This was the thriving underground world of the Mollies, pioneering explorers of gender and sexuality who built a community during this period of possibility and change. Bawdy songs rang out as bedecked Mollies engaged in masquerades. Nights were filled with unsanctioned weddings and gin-soaked christenings. Molly House, the game, celebrates this community by inviting players to take the roles of these Mollies as they navigate their desires and dodge the watchful eyes of the Society for the Reformation of Manners.
Boo! Boo! Hiss! Boo!
A citizen group that sought to stamp out any behavior it deemed deviant. During the game, players will try to accumulate joy by throwing and participating in festivities. In preparation, they move around the board to collect vice cards to play at these festivities. Certain sites on the board let players use cards from their hand to build up their reputations, which can improve later actions but also expose them to risk. Other sites, the shops, offer items that provide a variety of benefits, and in our current setup, it's quite a bit of gin.
A lot of gin.
At festivities, players will also score joy for the community. This is a crucial element of the game. In order for the community to survive, players must help the community pass its joy threshold, 30 for us in a 4-player game, by collaborating to throw the most magnificent festivities. Of course, this collaboration comes at a price. Staging festivities and taking some actions will gradually increase the size of the gossip pile. Each week, this pile will be inspected, possibly generating evidence against the different houses. Possibly. With enough evidence, the Society for the Reformation of Manners will raid a Molly house and indict those players with the highest reputation there. If sufficient evidence is generated over the course of the game, the wider community will be fully infiltrated, ending the game and leaving only those who successfully betrayed the community eligible to win. Well, maybe boo, unless it's you.
Well, no, you should still boo me if that's the case. That's fair. I think so. All right. So, welcome to Molly House, y'all. So, this game, it takes a roll-in move fixed with a deck of cards. All right? So, what is it you're looking at to begin with? So, first off, let's talk about things that make us happy and, dare I say, bring us joy in our lives. So, we have the joy track. The joy track also doubles as a victory point track. Now, that is actually a thematic difference. Joy track means you are not a informer. A victory point track is if you are an informer, all right?
Over like that.
Yeah, if it's flipped over to the hung side, so that is not good. So we have the joy track here, and one of my favorite things about this game, in all seriousness, is you'll notice that the track goes to 40. Someone has asked, "Hey Cole, what happens when you exceed 40 joy?" And Cole answered, "There is no limit to the amount of joy that you may experience. There is no cap." So you would just, know that you're at 40.
It's like, go up there.
Go back up, have more joy.
Do it again.
Yeah. All right, so we have a round track, but also known as a week track. All right, so that is one of the timers of the game. In addition to that, we have the various locations, which are color-coded into 4 different colors. So each of the 3 corner locations. So we have the places where the festivities will take place, or the houses, if you will. And then there are 1 adjacent spot in each spot where you're going to be able to take color-coded actions. There are the 4 stores, stores, whatnot,
Shops, yeah.
right? Where you're going to be able to acquire these various bottles of gin, as it were, but also other items throughout the game. And they are mimicked all the way around the corner in the 4 different colors. In addition to that, there is a market. of course, there's a market. So we have a 4-card market. It will always be 4 cards, except during a player's turn. We have the draw deck. The draw deck is also called the
Vice deck.
All right. Then we have the major indictments. Those are scary. Those are bad. There are minor indictments. Less scary, less bad, still bad. And then the item deck to be able to replace the items out there. In addition to that, every player has their own little player board and tableau. The player board has the list of the 6 actions that you're going to be able to take on your turn, as well as a holding place for a couple of the shop items or a couple of the items that you acquire. Now, these play and pass tokens are technically used usually in the solo game, but we're actually going to use it to show when we've passed during festivities. Again, just to make it more obvious for the cameras. And then everybody also has 4 tokens of a type.
Encounter tokens.
And those are either to show that you were loyal or that you're an informant. We'll talk about those more in a little bit. Now, the game comes with the wooden pawns that you see here. The other ones are really nice, heavy, weighted metal pawns that, I'll be honest, don't show up as well as they look in person. So we're going to keep those on the player boards and then use the wooden ones on the board because those show up better as we're moving around. In addition to that, there is a neoprene mat here in the middle. You might be asking yourself, why is there a neoprene mat? Well, honestly, it's a card game. So it just makes it easier to be able to pick up the cards off the neoprene mat. There are a couple of dice because it is a roll and move, but it's not your, mom and dad's roll and move. The candelabra is disappointing that it doesn't come with an actual 1-foot size candelabra, but it's the active player or the kind of the start player, but also it's a little reminder token of whose turn it is when things get a little involved.
Yep.
So in addition to that, there are influence cubes in the 4 colors. There are reminders that they're basically card IOUs to be able to remind you that you have to draw cards when the next round starts. And then when houses get raided, if they get raided, there are matching markers as well as dangerous cruising locations, which will modify one of the actions in the game and make it more risky to take those actions as the game progresses. So before we get started, I'm going to also talk about the cards in this game. Now, there are 4 suits, and those suits are
Pentacles, fans, cups, and hearts.
Now, you'll notice that they range from 1 to 8. In a 5-player game, they range from 1 to 9. We've removed the 9s because we are 4 players. So there are single cards of each suit, 1 to 8. In addition to that, there are, by the way, these are called desire cards. So numbered cards, desires. Then there are mollies. The mollies are the jacks and the queens. And then there are the threats, the constables and the rogues. So usually, as a general rule, good cards tend to be bad cards, hence threats. All right? So with that said, how does the game actually play? Well, the game takes place, as you can see, over a maximum of 5 weeks. Within each of those, there is an indeterminate number of player turns. All right? Now, they use the term rounds, but because it's an indeterminate number of turns, we're just gonna call it that. All right? So on a player's turn, every turn has 4 steps. Those 4 steps are very simply roll the dice. First off. And then you may have to resolve a market action with the last card. So we're going to call this the last card, that being the first card, because there will be a conveyor. But again, because we have the camera pretty tight right here, we're going to call this the last card. So it is possible that this card or this card gets discarded, but where it gets discarded, we'll talk about in a little bit. So roll the dice, you may discard a card or 2. Then depending on what you roll, you then move your pawn. Your pawn is going to be somewhere out here. When you actually move your pawn, or when you roll, I should say, you can do your choice. You may do the cumulative, try that again. You can do movement of 1 die, the other die, or the sum of both dies. So in this case, you're pretty flexible. You can move once, 1 space, 2 space, or 3 spaces. You always must move in the same direction, but you may move clockwise or anti-clockwise. So with this roll here, I could move 1, I could move 1, 2, or I could move 1, 2, 3, or I could do the same the other direction. All right. However, if I had rolled something like this, that X is discard a card. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. But this says I either move 2 or I stay where I'm at. And depending on where I am dictates what actions I can actually take on a given turn. So all that makes sense?
Yeah.
All right.
If it's like that.
If we've only, in like 5 games of this, we've only rolled this 1 time.
It's a 1 in 36 chance.
Yeah, right, thank you.
Yeah.
So, if so, a gentleman comes calling in his carriage and will take you anywhere on the board that you want to go.
A fancy fellow.
Yes, I believe that is the term. Now, in addition to that, you'll notice that you have 2 X's, so you're going to be discarding 2 cards. We'll talk about that here in a little bit, all right? So, after you have moved and you've gone to whatever destination that you've chosen to go to, then you must, and I want to stress that, must take one of the available 6 actions that are shown right here. Basic actions are always available. The site actions are specific to where you actually are. And then after you have taken your turn, then you're going to refill the market and check hand size. So again, maybe you had to discard some cards. Maybe you selected a card out here. So what's going to happen? We're going to conveyor the market. We're going to flip up until there's 4 cards. And then we're going to check your hand size. The hand size is always 6 max, except during your turn. If you exceed your hand size during your turn, that's okay. But otherwise, at the end of your turn, if you have more than 6, you must discard the card. Where the card goes will be whether or not you are a normal player or a revealed informer. If you are a revealed informer, they will go to the safe pile. The safe pile is another word for discard pile. Now, the discard pile is going to be off camera, but it can be face up. We're going to play it face up because it's always inspectable. Because card tracking does matter in this game. Whereas the other discard pile here is called the
gossip pile.
And the gossip pile, generally just terrible, not good, unless you are maybe an informer.
It depends on what colors you have here and what colors other people have.
Yeah, but it's
Definitely worse for some people than others.
Okay,
in almost every case.
Yes, facts. All right, so now let's go ahead and break this down a little bit further, okay? So, first off, if you roll something along the lines of that says, first off, you're going to discard the rightmost card in the market. So you take a look at the market cards, and again, I'm going to actually use them to show what the cards are right here. If it is one of the desire cards here, just simply it goes into the safe pile, i.e. the face-up discard. Okay? So those, okay, done, easy enough. We don't need to talk about those anymore. However, if it is a Molly, if it gets discarded like that, that is going to be a gossip. It's going to go into the gossip pile, okay? Again, the gossip pile is going to be the face down pile right here, okay? Easy enough, done, simple. So, Molly's, we've talked about those in regards to that, done.
Yep.
However, if it is one of the 2 threats, it goes into the gossip pile. You'll notice it says the same thing regardless of which threat it is. And then it exposes the most infamous if it's discarded via that action. So, again, discarding it here, it would just go simply into the gossip pile, face down like that. But then, if you have any cards in your tableau, also called your...
Ooh.
Oh, well done.
He's got one.
There you go. Total brain cramp.
What your set of cards is called?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Reputation.
Your
There we go.
reputation.
Yep.
Thank you. If you have any cards in your reputation that match that. So say Ken rolled this.
Yep.
This was the last card here.
Yep.
It's going to go into the discard pile. And then every card that matches that's in his reputation
Right.
also goes into the gossip pile.
Well, so we would check everybody.
Fair point.
In this case, I'm the only one that has hearts in my reputation.
Right,
But
but-
if Kyle had hearts, we would compare the numbers, the ranks on the hearts.
Correct. So
Right.
let's say it were this.
Right.
So we have a 6. We have an 8.
So I
8
have the
is
most
higher.
in my reputation, so mine is going to go also into the gossip pile.
But good news.
I will get a red cube
Right.
in compensation.
Yes. Yeah. Which can be positive, could be
Yeah,
negative.
It is usually both.
Yes.
Usually both things.
So think of it this way: cards in your reputation. Think of them. Possibly you could refer to them as an investment. Okay, but these are temporary investments. As you see, they can disappear. However, these cats, those are permanent investments. You were tied to it, mostly permanent. So therefore, that's just going to count as one of the reputation whenever we're referring to reputation, whether it's a card of a color or a cube of a color in that case. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So again, that is the first thing is if you draw one of the, or if you roll one or possibly two of those X's. So it could be something along the lines to where you would roll, I will find it, there we go, 2 X's, you would discard both of those cards. Like literally, just there. They would go into the safe pile unless it's those, which would go to the gossip pile. All that makes sense? All that clear? All right, good. All right, so that also talks about exposing, okay, what happens. Then after that, you're going to move your pawn, all right? So moving your pawn, let's say I rolled something along the lines of that. So I can move 0 or I can move 2. I'll move 2, sure. I'll go 1, 2. And I chose to move clockwise, which you cannot do. Again, it has to all be in one direction. You can't go 1, 2. If you wanted to do that, you just stay in the same place in that case, right? Okay, you get the idea. But as it is, we went ahead and moved over to there, done. Now, you must take one of the 6 available actions. Now, not all the actions are available on all the spaces, but let's go ahead and go over them and we'll talk about what spaces you can do. So basic actions: indulge, gain a market card matching your site. What site am I at? I'm at the hearts or the red suit out there. So that is the matching site in that case. So a market card, what is? Market card are those 4. It is not mystery meat in that case. So if I choose to indulge, I have one option in this case. I would take that 6. That would go into my hand like so. Okay, done. That's it.
And if the market were like that, you just couldn't take that out.
Right, and then I wouldn't be able to, exactly. All right? So, any questions on indulge? I think that's pretty simple. Lie low. Just be incognito. Draw mystery meat. Draw a card from the deck. So, literally, draw the top card. And that can be done anywhere out here. Okay? All right?
That's the only action that can always be done.
Correct. All right? All right, good. Next, we're accuse. Now, I'm going to briefly touch on this because how you get to this point is not clear yet, all right? But we'll go ahead and touch it on it real quick. Reveal an encounter token if their pawn is at your site and resolve the revealed effect. Okay, so let's say this is the situation. I know.
Okay.
Let's say this is the situation. I moved 2, right? Because that's what I rolled there. So I chose to go here, and I say, hey, Kyle.
J'accuse.
I point at you, and I say, I think you are an informer.
You don't actually have to choose. You get to flip over a token.
Yeah. But
it's
again,
more dramatic.
It totally is. So I think you should. Anyway, you'll notice that there are a couple of maybe tokens out here of Kyle's. I can choose one of them to have him say, hey, flip that over. And if he does so, oh, he's loyal. I'm going to lose joy because I am so sorry, my friend. I was wrong. My bad.
How dare you?
All right.
But if you had chosen the other one...
If I chose the other one, oh, he's an informer. I will gain joy.
And the community will gain.
And, right, because, aha, I have found out who's diming us out, and you are a terrible human being.
Yeah.
So,
And it means some bad things for Kyle, too.
it does, and it's rather involved, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
3 points, I would lose 3 points I would gain.
And the community.
And the community would gain for correctly deducing that he's an informer. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. So that is the third action. That is rare, more rare than all the other actions.
It won't come up for a while.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it feels so good.
When you're
When
right.
you're right.
All right. So basic actions are pretty, you guessed it, basic, pretty chill, right? All right. So the next ones we'll talk about, these we'll do bottom to top. So the shop here says take the item. Obviously, you got to be at the location. Okay, when you're at a shop location, you pretty much have only a couple of options, right? You can always lie low. You can't gain a market card there because, well, there isn't
doesn't
march
match.
because they're neutral color. But you can shop. You can take the item. Then perform a market discard. It is very easy to forget that second part. So in this case, I would get this bottle of gin. It would go onto one of my locations, and then that last card would go. Now, if it were a constable or a rogue, it would go here, and then anything we would figure out who has the most of that suit. They would discard. They would get cubes, just like as if you had removed it here. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Good. All right.
What if you already have 2 items?
That is a very good question.
I'm pretty sure the answer is that you can throw one away.
Yeah, I
discard.
think so. You can freely discard the, and if ever, and we'll talk about it at the end of the round, you do not refill this. You refill this at the end of the round. However, if ever you're out, shuffle the discards and you get
If the item deck is empty, we've somehow run through it.
Right.
Shuffle up the discards and keep going.
what he said. So there you go. So just do a market discard as if you would rolled an X. Okay, moving on. Let's say you be cruising, in my 6-4. So play a matching desire card to your reputation. All right. Then draw cards from the deck equal to your reputation. So let's go ahead and set this up real quick. Let's say red. I just am going to grab a couple or one.
There's
need a
not any
heart.
reds in here, I'll tell you
Oh
that.
my God, where are they?
They're so
I have a
safe.
giant stack of red
Okay,
cards.
here we
I don't have any
go.
reds
Here
in here.
is my tableau.
Yep. All right.
All right. I am on a red location because remember I moved there, right? Okay, so let's walk through these steps. Play a matching desire to my reputation, then draw. Okay, so in this case, play a matching reputation from your hand. I have one, so I'm going to play one to my reputation. Then draw cards from the deck equal to your reputation. Now, reputation has nothing to do with those stars. It has to do with how many of that thing you have. So in that case, that is a suit. That's a little bit better. Thank you. That I have 3 of that suit. I have 1. I have 2. And remember, this is like a permanent investment, right, in red. So that is a 3rd reputation in that regard. Okay? Now, if, let's say, this were like this. And I will actually show this a little bit better. I think that shows it. It will here in a minute. Let's go ahead and move that over like that. There we go. Let's say I am cruising there. And in that case, I then go ahead and play that card there. All right? Play a matching desire, then draw cards from the deck. And draw is always mystery meat. But you'll notice that there is on that Molly card, there you go.
Just on
There
the
we go. That Molly card says whenever you play a desire of the matching suit, then you get to score some joy. So I would get to score 2 joy. So literally, hey, peg 2 joy for yellow. So
Yep.
yellow would increase their joy like so.
And queens work the same way, except they score 3 joy.
There you go.
per
All right.
card,
So
yeah.
again, Molly's good. All right. Almost universally good. So I think that's pretty clear. Any questions on that?
And then you would draw 4. Because
Right.
you have 1, 2, 3,
again.
4.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 4, and that 4 would be from the draw deck, and it would still be 4 because it's
the
capped
maximum of 4.
at
Exactly.
4.
Yeah.
So I would actually be drawing literally 4 cards,
Yep.
which If that puts me, maybe that's my hand size, then what do I do at that point? I have to discard down to 6 because that's the end of my hand. And if there were any holes, we would slide and refill the market, and that's what my turn looks like.
Yep.
All right. Easy enough there. And then the meat of the game comes in. So, throwing festivities. Festivities so here. First off, where can you throw festivities? You can only throw festivities in the 4 houses or the 4 corners of the board, regardless of where you are. Whether they have been rated or not, they may be, you can throw a festivity. Live a little, live on the edge maybe. That's all right. So let's look at what it says first, and then we'll actually step through the steps. So bring to order, play, select, and score, add to gossip. Okay, that's a lot of words that are very truncated, but it actually does a pretty good job once you know the game of what are the steps of a festivity. We're going to call that throwing a party a festivity, 6 of one, half dozen the other. Scored threats, clear your matching reputation. Okay, non-scored threats, gain cubes and increase gossip. You must have cards to play. Okay, so let's go ahead and step through this a little bit slowly. First off, to be able to throw a festivity, there are a couple prerequisites. Prerequisite number 1, got to be in the corner. Prerequisite number 2, you must have a minimum of 2 cards in your hand. Only the player who throws the festivity must have 2 cards minimum. You can have more, but minimum 2 cards. All right, so once that has happened, then the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to bring the party to order. Which means, hey, everybody, party's about to begin. Whoever has the candelabra, hey, go ahead and give me the candelabra. And because I'm the one throwing the festivity. All right, so I am the quote-unquote festivity runner. All right. So second, you have to play cards. Now, this is going to be played over 2 rounds, possibly a third, but normally 2 rounds. The first thing that's going to happen is the community is going to play a card from the top of the deck. So whatever the top of the deck is, there. Now, with this being the case, let's go ahead and show what would happen depending on what the community flipped over. Okay. Those are the various options, realistically. They could have flipped over a regular desire. Okay, that's just, they played an 8 of fans. Easy enough. If they had played a rogue, we are going to roll a 10-sided die, and that is going to be on a number 0 through 9. Now, remember, in a 4-player game, we're only playing with 1 through 8. However, you are allowed to have that number be outside of that if the game rolled it. It just so happened the game rolled it there. But maybe, let's say it had rolled whatever, say a 7. So that is technically a 7 of pentacles. Okay, so a yellow 7. Okay, so that's what that would be for this. For any of the others, if it were a constable, that is straight up just a 0.
Yep.
Okay, and if it were a Molly, then that's going to come into play for what is going on. What is the goal? Why are we throwing a festivity? Well, we're throwing a festivity, hopefully, to be able to score. As the festivity thrower, I score hopefully positive and a lot, and everyone else maybe will be able to score out of this as well. So there are 4 different types of festivity that could take place when we're done doing the festivity. A quiet gathering is not great. It's super subdued. It's basically a bomb of a party, and not a good kind of bomb. It sucks.
Not the
It
best.
can help throw the constables off the scent.
It totally can. Apes.
Nothing to see here.
Constables here. Don't worry, we're just hanging out.
Just having a drink.
Having a cocktail. Call it good. Okay. Then from bottom to top, these are a dance, a christening, or a surprise ball. Okay? Only one of these 4 things can be done at a festivity. It's resolved. It is determined at the end based on what players collectively have played. So in this case, you would need a jack specifically, and then 3 of any suit, but it's a straight. So a 3, 4, 5, but it could be of any suit, and it must also include a jack. The christening is a queen and then maybe 777.
Yeah, trips.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
The surprise ball is a straight flush. Does not require a queen or a jack, but it does require something along the lines of a 4, 5, 6, 7 of the same suit.
Right.
Now, how do these things happen? Well, these happen because whatever was played out here, so let's go ahead, keep it simple.
Yeah.
Go ahead and throw that out there.
So, is this community?
Yeah. So the community played that, okay? And then, starting with whomever was the festivity runner, they are going to play cards. So it starts with me. I must play a card. I can never pass. So something along the lines of that. Let's say I go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and play a queen. So now, in clockwise order, it's going to go to Kyle. Kyle has two options. He plays or he passes. If he passes, he's done for the festivity, period. We're going to play twice around the board. Okay, so go ahead, you choose.
So during this process, we can talk. You
Yep.
can give generalities.
Oh,
can
hell,
give
you can talk
flavor.
throughout the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Can't reveal cards.
No specifics. I cannot say, oh, I have this card in my hand. I can say, oh, hey, if you want to play that queen, I can help out with a christening. I
Okay,
can get
cool.
us to 3
Awesome.
days.
Right, yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'll play the queen. Now, you can lie.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
That is, nothing is binding. What you are not allowed to do is be like, here, see, I have that card. But you can give away information, though, freely. So then, Jackie, it's up to her. Okay, so played. And Ken, now we begin the second round. The second round starts with the community flipping another card. So there we go. They played a jack.
Lots of options.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay,
Boy.
so now let me go ahead and reference this again. So a jack is a jack in 3 in a row. That is going to be a dance. A christening is a queen and 3 of the same card, right? Or same desire. A surprise ball, again, is a straight flush, regardless of the queen and the jack. And a quiet gathering, which right now, if you look out here, we're having a quiet gathering. And the reason you know that is because the queen would require 3 of the same. There's 2 8s. Okay, nothing there.
Close.
The jack requires a run of 3 cards. We have a 5 6, no 7, no 4 out there. So then come and I'm like, you know what? Now, if I were to play something like that, I must play a card. You were never allowed to pass as the festivity runner.
Yep.
Okay? All right.
So you've played something. I'm looking out here, and I'm going to play a threat. I'm going to play one of the rogues.
Okay.
Yep.
When a player plays a rogue, you don't roll the dice randomly.
You can set it.
I can set it to anything I want, and I say, let's round out that christening. That's going to be another 8.
Okay,
Little
so
tough
now
to see with the glare, but
Yeah.
there you go. So now let's pause for a second. So even if somebody were to play a 7 of any suit other than fans,
That's right.
the dance qualifies, but you can only do one of these things and it's always the higher one. So the higher one in this case, the christening has already been set. That is going to happen for sure. The only thing that could happen is if somebody played the 7 of fans, which would give us a surprise ball. Okay? So then Jackie sees this, and maybe she's out of cards, or maybe she sees that, I'm not going to benefit by playing anything. So therefore she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and pass.
Yep.
So she's done. And we get to Ken, and he chooses to play a
Yeah,
rogue.
we'll make that a 1.
Or maybe
Do
he
anything.
chooses to play it as an 8.
No, I don't want you to take it
Okay.
because you have a bunch of red in your.
Oh, fair. Now,
whoa, Ken.
yeah.
This is an example, Ken.
If what? Oh, right, yeah.
All right.
If I had played that, you'll notice 5, 6, 7, 8 of fans.
Squared away.
Guess
Yeah.
what? We're having a surprise ball.
Yep.
Woo! All right. But as it is, I didn't. Let's say I had that. Now, if you'll notice on my player board, I have a bottle of gin. We are done with the festival as far as playing cards.
Yep.
However, at this point, just before the festivity is selected, i.e. what qualifies, all players may play an extra round. And I say, you know what? Now that I see this and the way this is played out, whatever, maybe you played that 5 as the second card, maybe, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and discard that bottle of gin. Boom. Now, we're going to have the surprise ball. But now, a couple other things to point out. We are playing a third round. This third round breaks all the rules. What I mean by that is Kyle can play or pass just like normal.
Yep.
But now, remember, I said, once you're out of a festivity, you're out.
Yep.
The exception to that is with a
gin.
bottle of gin. So if Jackie passed, she could then choose to come back in.
Yep.
But probably wouldn't because the cards are, unless...
It's locked.
It really is, right? Now, and same goes, also, if somebody were an informer, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, then even an informer who normally is never allowed to play cards during a festivity could do so.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that more in a little bit. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is, if we could, let me go ahead and get one more 8 out here. Let's say, instead of that, I had played that. Now, also, let me set up one more thing. I apologize. Give me 1 second. Not the 7 of cups or of fans. There we go. Let's say, giving a bad example. What I'm trying to say is, for the different ranks, with a dance, the jack of 4, 5, 6 versus a jack versus a 5, 6, 7, it has to be the higher number.
Right. Yep.
If it were a set of 6s and a set of 8s, the 8s would obviously
go.
trigger.
Yep.
Okay? All right. So, whatever that may be, let's go back to this like so. All right. So that is done. Now again, let's look at this. We have brought it to order. We have played. Now we need to select. So what is it out here that has happened? Which of the 3 things, or 4 things as it were, is we have a
Christening.
we have a christening. So we have a queen, we have an 8, we have an 8, and we have an 8. Okay. So how this is going to happen now is everything that is a part of that is now going to score. Okay? So the queen is going to score. In this case, that is going to score nothing. Because this is only if the community had played it. So therefore, I played it, but I just wanted the thing to go off well.
Yep.
So, but then this is going to go ahead into the discard pile, i.e. the...
Goes into your reputation.
Sorry, into my reputation. Apologies. Wrong phrasing. So then we go, and if there were a 4th 8 out here, I would get to choose as the party runner, the festivity runner. Which 3 8s?
If Ken's rogue had perhaps been an 8,
Right,
you
then I could have
broken it
chosen.
up.
Right.
Exactly.
So in this case, I don't have a choice. It's got to be that one, and that one.
Yep.
So in this case, go for it.
I'm going to score 5
5.
joy from this, and it comes into my reputation.
Yep.
The community
is going to score 5.
will score 5 from this card, and this will go to the safe pile, aka the discard.
There you go. Yep.
So we resolved all the desires in it. Now we're going to resolve the threats.
Right. So first off, we have what's called foiling a threat. Now I'm just going to read this because I think it's written really well here. If a threat card is part of a selected set, add it to the safe pile instead of all the other cards that have been resolved. The player who played the card then adds all matching cards in their reputation to the safe pile. And if a threat played by the community was selected, all players do this. So getting back to this, if Kyle had something like this,
Yeah, let's say I had that 8 in there already.
that rogue is going to go to the safe pile, which is a good thing for those of us that have that. That will go.
Yeah.
And then all that have out here, he is going to take that. It is not a may, it is a must.
It's going out.
That will go into the safe pile. But he goes from a temporary reputation to a permanent, but it's a
Choose.
choice.
Yeah.
So I
Now-
could say maybe I think Pentacles is dangerous. We've already seen one threat go into the deck. I think there's going to be a lot of evidence. There's risk.
Or maybe there's already a bunch of cubes on the Pentacle House.
Right.
So
I could choose to just void myself of those 2 cards.
Right.
Or I could take 2 cubes because I put 2 cards of that suit into the safe pile.
Right.
Yep.
So, and he cannot be like, let's hedge our bets. Maybe I only want one. And the reason he can't is it's all or nothing. So he played this one, so that goes. And then this was in his tableau into his reputation. So he chooses to take a couple of reputation cubes there. So then we have resolved all of the things that were in the set that were selected, the queen and the 3/8. Now we have to do something with the rest of these cards. So the rest of these cards, you'll notice right here, again, going through the festivity, we have brought to order, we have played, we have selected, and we've scored. Now we have to add to the gossip. So everything else that's out there is going to go into the gossip pile. We start with the community cards because honestly, the community cards are basically irrelevant for the next part of this.
Yeah.
So now we look at who has cards left out here. In whatever order the festival runner chooses, they're now going to draw cards from the deck based on the number of cards that are going into the gossip. So I choose me first. That goes into my hand. And you know what? Nobody likes Ken. So Jackie, would you like to join us? That will go. Now, let's go ahead and say there's only one card left in the deck.
Right.
So now he has 2 cards. So that's okay. He's going to go ahead and take both of these cards and put them in here. So he's going to draw one there, but now there's no cards left. So therefore, he's going to get a card IOU, is what I think of him as, okay? And that says, hey, next round, you're going to get another card when we get to there, when the deck is replenished.
Right.
So one of the cards that Ken discarded, this threat was not scored, goes to the gossip pile. When that happens, if a player played a threat that was added to the gossip pile, that player is exposed.
Right.
So Ken would have to discard all of his hearts, take cubes. That's what being exposed is. When you see the word exposed,
and
that's what it
you
means.
must
take
cubes.
Yeah.
So here's the difference.
That's a case where I wasn't scared of the threat, but I thought other people might be.
Right.
I got rid of it. I was exposed, but I didn't really have any exposure because I didn't have any stuff
So
in my reputation.
the difference is his was a part of the set. He may take cubes.
Right.
His wasn't part of the set. He must take
That's right.
cubes.
Yep.
Okay? All right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Hopefully that's clear to everybody there.
But a difference is that I don't take a cube
For the
this
one
card.
that got discarded, or not
that's
discarded, into the gossip pile.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay? So now, I got it over here.
Yeah, there it is.
Now is the scoring part of the festivity. Thank you. So we did a christening. So the christening, you'll notice that is the community. That's the house symbol. So the community is going to score 2 points. I'm sorry, 2 joy.
2 joy.
Apologies. Habits. And then I am going to score based on the christening and my current reputation that matches that
house.
specific house.
Yep.
So if we look at this, this is Red House or House of Hearts. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Peg me 5 points. We going Sizzler. Woo! All right, that makes sense?
I got 2 things.
Go.
Yep.
So, up at the start, you mentioned about a house being raided. You cannot throw a festivity in a house that's been raided. I don't think it came up in our pre-plays. If it did, whatever.
Right.
You could not have taken that turn if that house had been
I
raided.
could not have taken that action.
If the house is raided,
Correct.
the community is too wary of the surveillance. They're not going to throw a party there.
Right.
So the second thing, somebody mentioned in the chat that when I were to have resolved that threat, I gained 2 cubes. The wording in the rulebook, if Whirligig is out there and wants to comment, or Joe, says the pride rule. Any player who adds cards to the safe pile at this time, which this is specifically talking about foiling a threat when it's part of a scored festivity, any who adds cards to the safe pile at this time may take a matching cube for each card added to the safe pile. I added 2 cards to the safe pile, the foiled threat and the card for my reputation. So we've been playing it as that is 2.
I thought this is a question that I guess I didn't know we had. So okay.
Somebody mentioned in the chat. We didn't have a question about it.
We talked about it earlier and decided that's how it works.
I mean,
But-
intuitively, that's what makes sense, right?
Because the way it's written in the rule book, it's kind of a sub-bullet under foiling a threat. And in that section, it talks about adding multiple cards to the safe pile. both the foiled threat and your matching cards from your reputation. So we interpreted that as you're adding them all to the safe pile, gain that many cubes. It seems a benefit for clearing a threat.
All right. So, festivity. Let me cover that briefly one more time because that was a lot.
Yep.
Bring to order, i.e. take the candelabra.
Yep.
Everybody plays a card starting with the community, and the festival runner must play one.
Yep.
Then everybody else is a may or pass. Then select the highest, whichever it is of the four.
We do that twice.
Play twice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then select whatever the highest is, and by select it means do because it's an automatic.
Yeah, you should
except you're selecting.
You're determining it with some choice by the festival runner, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Then score it. Then add to the gossip. Okay. Scored threats clear your matching reputation. Non-scored threats gain cubes, increase gossip, and you must have cards to play. Right. Easy enough there. Joe says the foiled threat should not be included, so you'd only take 1 cube.
Great.
So Joe, thank you.
Thank
I
you, Joe.
appreciate you chiming in on that. So guess what? We've been playing the heavy cardboard version as always.
Which is,
All right.
for most heavy cardboard variants, it's actually fairly friendly.
Forgiving, yeah.
Right,
Usually
yeah.
heavy cardboard variant, we put the screws to ourselves.
Right, yeah. All right. So all that said, that's all the 6 actions. 5 of them are very, very simple. The 6th one actually is pretty simple once you actually see it in play.
When you see us play, it'll
Right.
make sense.
All right. So after that, you'll notice, oh, hey, the draw deck's empty. So when the draw deck is empty, that means it's the end of the week. So take the candelabra. So at the beginning of the next player's turn, so these would have technically slid down, and we go to refill. Oh, it's empty. So this is our reminder.
So start of my turn, I take the candelabra.
There you go. Hey, it's Kyle's turn there. Next step is everyone reveals any threats that are in their hand. Do you have any? It's on the honor system. There is a rule for tournament. Look, it's on the play with better people otherwise. I have one. So you have to reveal them, and hesitant players, i.e. anybody that reveals them now, is exposed, which again, if I was exposed here, I would have to discard here. Same thing
I got one,
applies. There you
so-
go. So
Yep.
that would all go, and
go in
those
gossip, right?
And those go into the gossip pile.
Yep.
That's not great for most of us.
No.
Then the society investigates. So the society is going to take this entire deck of cards. We're going to shuffle it, and we're going to count it. So this ends up being 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You divide that in thirds, rounding down. So 10 divided by 3 is 3 1/3. So therefore, we're going to remove 3 of these cards.
Yep.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3. These are removed. Go into the safe pile. Now you can show what they
hey,
are.
got rid of
Hey,
the threat.
good news. We got rid of one of the threats. That's awesome. If you're me. There, and now we're going to turn over the rest of the cards, and we're going to sort them by the suit.
We'll see what
This actually is a perfect example. I would
Yeah,
like to
worked
say
out-
that was
worked out
planned
fairly well.
So now, looking
if
at
your red
this,
had been in there, that would be even better, though. So let's do it like this.
okay,
Yeah, that's
okay, sure. So you look at desire cards and mollies multiplied by threats. So in this case, that is 2 times 0.
None.
Don't worry about it.
Yep.
Next, and you can do this in whatever order.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. We do yellow. 1 times 1 is 1, so therefore 1, effectively, it's kind of a threat cube when it's over there. Okay?
evidence. Is
Yes.
what it's
Yeah.
called.
We'll go to red next. We have 2 times 1. That's going to be 2 over onto red.
So I was going to add a couple extra here just so we can
Sure.
talk about that.
All
But
right.
We'll say 2 times 1 for 2. So I'm adding 2, and we'll come around to what all of that means. in a
Okay.
bit.
So those are done, and then 1 times 0
0.
is 0. Okay, and we're double checking whether or not the threat adds 1 because that's an edge case, but I don't think so. All right, so now, so that is gathering evidence. So now we look, count all the amount of evidence individually in each of the houses. Does any house have 7 or more? Let's say, for argument, you know what, we'll leave those there. Let's say it's that. Okay, it wouldn't have, because we added 2. Maybe it's that. All right, so now check for raids. If there's 7 or more, that house gets raided. Well, we're looking at that. That's 4. That's 7. Remove 7 of that, leaving any extra remaining, and the house has been raided. That is pretty negative, pretty bad, okay? And we're going to place out the 2 dangerous cruising tokens, as you see, all right? Whoever has the most reputation in the matching house. So looking at this, 4, 5, and let's go ahead and say it were 1 here, sorry, Jackie, and 1 there.
Oh,
I clearly have the most reputation within the house that was raided.
Yep.
Well, you see these major indictments over here? Let's go ahead and show an example, shall we? So a major indictment might be something like that. I don't know where you're from, but where I'm from, that looks pretty ominous.
Yeah.
So that means potentially you're going to die.
50%
You can't win.
chance of being hung.
Yes, and that is no bueno, okay? Now, they're not all that bad, but they ain't good, okay? So you're going to randomly draw one of these indictments for whoever has the most. So, okay, I randomly draw that one. That's going to live right there. And then the good news is ties are friendly in this game. So we look, so 1 and 1, hey, good news, you're both tied, so you both get a minor indictment. The minor indictments, they're basically nothing. I mean,
Slap
what's
on the
that?
wrist. Slap on the
Minus
wrist.
However,
instance.
there's also legitimately not a whole lot, right?
Yeah.
Like super minor. So hey, as it is, you get 1, and those would hang out with everybody there. Okay? Now, it is possible you run out, but if so, you run out.
You'd lose if you somehow, in the unlikely event, quote the rulebook, you would run out of either type of indictment. You instead lose a flat amount of joy the moment you would need to take it. I believe it's
I think it's 4.
I think it's 4 for minor.
8 for major.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So then, there's no limit to the amount of indictments you can have. You can have multiples, so that's okay. Okay. Then at that point and that point only, we're going to check if the game has ended. The game can end one of 3 ways. The first one is if all 4 houses have been raided, or a house that's been raided theoretically would be raided a second time. It has 7 or more cubes again. And that's where having extra leftover cubes, not so great. The second way that can end, and that ends with what's called community infiltration. The second way the game can end is the more joyful way, and that is if the community marker reaches its threshold or passes it. In a 4-player game, is 30 points. And finally, if neither of those are met, and it's been 5 weeks, and we still can't get to 30 joy.
Or 2 houses haven't been raided.
Right. Community atrophy. In other words, just...
Wow.
Everyone
fizzles
makes
out.
it, but there's no joy.
Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
joy.
No joy.
No. All right. Then, after that, there's a step called Encounter the Society. So anybody that drew, not that has, but that drew indictment cards, now has a choice to make. So let's say that is there, actually. That's there. Go and put it out anywhere. Okay, great. So now, the 3 of us all drew indictment cards. So now we have a decision to make. So remember those tiles that we had here, the encounters? There are 3 loyal and 1 informer one. You choose out of the ones that you haven't placed on the board already, what one goes out. And where does it go? It goes to the house that your pawn is closest to. If tied, clockwise. So I'm here. I'm going to choose one of those 4 secretly to place down. Whereas Kyle, he has to choose here because even though it's equidistant, it goes clockwise, goes there, and Jackie will place one out there. So that's how we're going to place those out there as such.
Yep.
Then after that, we're going to go through the cleanup, and the cleanup is just a handful of steps. Shuffle all the vice cards except those that are in your hand, reputation, and market. So
Yep.
these would stay, and any cards in hand would stay, but we would shuffle all the other ones. Mm-hmm. Then refill the market first, then add 1 into the gossip face down.
Yep.
And then players who have draw tokens, i.e. card IOUs, now must turn those in and you get that card for it. And then Any items that were left on the board get discarded and refilled. And finally, advance the week to the next week. Rinse and repeat. That is...
Nearest open house. So yours would have to go there.
I knew that, and my bad.
we just-
Sorry about that. Yeah,
yeah.
nearest open house.
Yeah.
All right. Now, there are a couple of things here that we haven't talked about. And I've debated whether or not to teach you all this now or wait. And I think it's smarter to wait.
The revealed
The
informers.
revealing informers, if that comes to be. If we haven't covered it, at the end of the stream, I will actually cover it that way it's hit. But now let's go ahead and talk about what happens at game end. Okay? If community atrophy happens, what does that mean? That means the end of 5 weeks and none of the other 2 have happened. Everybody loses. And look, we're all sad. Okay, so that's the least likely, I would say. Okay? The favorable, maybe, option would be community survival.
I would say that's the favorable option. Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
I totally think so. So, all players reveal their indictments at this point. So, we would reveal our whatever indictments we have. If anybody is an informer, i.e., remember when we encounter, hey, you're an informer, we flip them over, it's an informer. They have special rules regarding them, which we'll talk about if we hit. So something like this. So Kyle's an informer. If they're an informer, all of their indictments are pardoned. They just go away. Glorious for you. Terrible as a human being. But whatever. All right? That player discards all their indictments and any loyal tokens that are on the board. So maybe they showed that they were an informer there, but maybe they had a loyal token that just gets discarded. You don't get the benefit of being loyal when you're actually an informer. So that just hits the high road. Then anybody, let's say in this case, Kyle had put an informer token up there and the house was not rated. Well, guess what? The society works both ways. Oh, you were an informer, but you didn't actually inform us with anything usable. So therefore, you get an indictment.
Major.
All right? So they hate you, so you get a major indictment in that case. Then, everybody scores 2 joy for all their loyal tokens that are out there. Hey, look at me. Hey, look at you. Well done, you. So we're loyal. We would peg a couple of points. And then everybody with at least 1 indictment now has to deal with trial.
Yep.
So those simply roll and minus whatever 10-sided die and do what each one says. All right?
So I rolled a 1. It's -4. I was acquitted. I only lose a little joy. We do that, and I went first because I have the candelabra. We go around and resolve them.
Right? Yeah, there you go. If you've been hanged, you flip your joy marker over to the new side. Mm-hmm. The game is over. Whoever has the most joy wins that hasn't been hung.
Good note.
Good note.
Tied players share joy.
Yeah, right on.
Okay? All right. However, community infiltration, if all of the houses are rated, or a house effectively would have been rated a second time because it's been rated and it has too many cubes, the game ends in community infiltration. All right? So at that point, it's a little bit more convoluted. Players without informer tokens and those with an informer token matching an open house are found guilty of sodomy and hanged. Hard stop. Flip their joy marker over to the hang side. Players with an informer token matching a rated house are not hanged. Instead, because they're not allowed to have joy, you reset their joy marker to 0, and then they may score some victory points here in a little bit. Now, any informers get to score their victory points. They score 2 per evidence at the house with their informer token, plus 2 victory points for every reputation point of all the other players that match their house. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they would score 6 for that. They will subtract 1 point for their own reputation in all the suits.
Yep.
So they would lose 2 points of those that they just gained. This includes the suit they informed against, because they're informers,
Yep.
but you're still guilty in the house of the society,
Sure.
I guess. Which, terrible.
Terrible.
The game is now over. The player with the highest positive points wins. If any players are tied for the highest, or no player has a score greater than 0, everyone loses.
Okay.
And that is how you play Molly House. Thank you for watching the video, y'all. Go check out some more of them if you are so inclined. But while you're here, take a moment, subscribe. It really, really, really helps the channel. I appreciate it, y'all. Thank you.